Get ready to see the story like you've never seen before. This is the complete story of the Bible, the creation. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was lifeless, empty, and dark. Then the Spirit of God moved across the vast emptiness. He said, "Let there be light." Suddenly light shone around the entire sphere of the earth. God looked at the light and said, "That's good." He then divided the light from the darkness. He looked at the light and said, "I'll call you day." Turning to the darkness, he said, "And I'll call you night." So, with the day and the night, that was the first day. On the second day, God looked at the waters and said, "Be divided." Immediately, the waters started to separate. Some went up and the rest stayed down. God looked at the waters that were above, and he looked at the waters that were beneath. Then he looked at the space that was in between the two and said, "I'll call you sky." On the third day, God focused on the waters that were below the sky. He said, "Be gathered together into seas, rivers, and lakes. Let dry land appear." Suddenly land rose up from the waters. Rivers flowed off the land, separating the hills and causing valleys. Lakes and seas were everywhere. God looked at the dry land and he looked at the seas and said, "That's good." Then he said to the land, "Bring forth vegetation. Let there be grasses, vegetables, herbs, and trees. All of them will have seeds, so that life may continue on." Immediately plants started growing across the entire earth. There were grasses, flowers, and vegetables. There were trees of many different kinds. Some would become tall, while others would remain close to the ground. Some of the trees would produce different kinds of fruit. All this vegetation grew from that day forward, and they all had seeds so life could continue on. On the fourth day, God looked into the heavens and said, "Let there be lights, a greater light to rule over the day, and a lesser light to dominate the night. They'll divide the day and the night, and be for signs and seasons, days and years." Immediately the sun started moving across the sky, giving light and warmth to the earth. The moon and stars filled the night with splendor and brilliance. God looked at the sun, the moon, and the stars and said, "That's good." On the fifth day, God looked at the sky and the waters that were below it. He said, "Bring forth life. Let there be birds in the skies, and fish and sea creatures in the water." Immediately sea creatures started moving in the seas, lakes, and rivers. Some were large and others were very small. There were fish of all different sizes, shapes, and colors. Birds appeared in the skies. Some flew high up in the air, while others stayed close to the ground. They had different shapes, colors, and sounds. God looked at the sea creatures, the fish, and birds. He said, "That's good." He blessed them and told them to multiply and fill the seas and skies. On the sixth day, God said to the earth, "Bring forth living creatures. Let there be wild animals and others that can be tamed." Immediately, animals started walking across the earth. Some were huge, and others were very small. God looked at them and said, "That's good." Then God said, "Let's make people. We'll make them to be like us. They'll rule over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, and the animals that move across the land." So God made a man and a woman, and he blessed them and told them to multiply and fill the earth with people. He told them to rule over all he had made. He then gave them fruit, grains, vegetables, and green plants to eat. Then God looked at all he had made, and he said, "It is all very, very good." On the seventh day, God rested from all that he had done. He blessed the seventh day and made it special. This is how God created the heavens and the earth, and brought forth life in the first week of time. Imagine the earth when it was new and before the plants had come up. In those days, God hadn't yet allowed it to rain on the earth, but caused a mist to come each day to water the land. During this time, God took some soil and shaped the first man. He breathed into his nostrils, and Adam was alive. God planted a garden in a place called Eden. It had every kind of tree, and there was a river that flowed out from the garden. In the middle, there were two special trees. One was called the tree of life, and the other was called the tree of knowledge of good and evil. God told Adam to take care of the garden. He said, "You may eat from every tree except the one in the middle, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. You're not to eat from that tree. If you eat from it, you will die." God said, "It's not good that man is alone. I'll make a helper that's just right for him." He then brought all the animals to Adam and told him to name them. So Adam named all the animals, and whatever he named them, that was their name. As he was naming them, he noticed that all the animals came in pairs, male and female. Yet, as he looked around, he noticed that there wasn't a female for him. God caused a deep sleep to come down over Adam, and he slept deep and long. Then God opened up the flesh in Adam's side and took a rib. Carefully he closed up the flesh. From that rib, God made a woman. When Adam awoke, God brought the woman to him. Adam said, "This is bone of my bone, and flesh of my flesh." She be called woman, because she was taken out of man. This is the reason why a man leaves his parents and forms a relationship with his wife, and they become one flesh. Adam named his wife Eve because she would become the mother of all people.
God created Adam and Eve and provided all they needed in the Garden of Eden, like the animals. They had no need of clothes, yet they were not ashamed. The snake was most clever of all the animals. One day he said to Eve, "Is it true God won't let you eat from all the trees in the garden?" "Oh, we can eat from all the trees. That is, except for the one in the middle. God said that we aren't to eat that fruit or even touch it. He says if we do, we'll die." "It's not true. You won't die. God told you that because he knows if you eat that fruit, you'd be like him, knowing good as well as evil." The woman looked at the fruit. It was beautiful and looked delicious. She thought, "If I eat this fruit, it'll make me wise." So she took the fruit and ate it. She then gave some to Adam, and he ate it as well. Suddenly they realized they were naked. So they sewed some fig leaves together to make coverings for themselves. As evening approached, they heard God walking in the garden. Suddenly, they realized they were afraid of God, so they hid among the trees. "Adam, where are you?" Adam knew he had to answer. He said, "Lord, I heard you walking in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked. So I hid." "Who told you that you were naked? Did you eat of the tree from which I told you not to eat?" "It was the woman you gave me. She gave me the fruit, and yes, I ate it." God turned to Eve. "Why did you do this?" "The snake. The snake tricked me into eating it." God turned to the snake and said, "Because you have done this, you are cursed more than all the animals. From now on, you'll move about on your belly. There will be hostility between you and the woman, and there will be a battle between your offspring and hers. He'll crush your head, while you'll only bruise his heel." Looking back at the woman, God said, "Your pain will be great when you give birth to children, and having babies will be associated with pain. You'll want to control your husband, but from now on, men will dominate over you." God said to Adam, "I made it very clear that you are not to eat from that tree. Because you have disobeyed, the ground is cursed. From now on, you'll work for your food, and the ground will fight against you. It will sprout thorns and weeds. Hard work will mark your life until you return to the soil from which you came." God dressed the man and his wife in clothes made out of animal skins. He then sent them out of the garden, where they worked the soil for their food. God said, "People now know evil as well as good. They'll try to get to the tree of life so they can live forever." Therefore, God put a heavenly guard outside the garden. From that day on, people were separated from the tree of life. Adam and Eve had a son and named him Cain. In time they had another son named Abel. Abel became a herdsman, working with animals. Cain became a farmer, tilling the soil. One day, when it was time to bring a sacrifice to the Lord, Cain decided to bring fruits and vegetables instead of a lamb. Abel also brought an offering, but it was the best lamb from his flock. The Lord was pleased with Abel's offering, but he wasn't happy with Cain's. Cain became angry when he saw that God didn't accept his sacrifice. He started to pout. God said, "Cain, why are you angry? If you simply do what's right, you'll be accepted and happy. But if you don't, sin is waiting for you. It's crouched by your door, ready to pounce and become your master. Instead, you need to take control of it." A few days later, Cain and Abel were talking out in a field. Cain turned and attacked his brother and killed him. Later that day, God asked Cain, "Where's your brother?" "I don't know." "Am I supposed to watch over him all the time?" "Oh Cain, what have you done? Listen, your brother's blood is crying to me from the soil. You've loved this ground, but from now on it's cursed because it contains your brother's blood. Oh, you'll continue to work the field, but it'll no longer respond to you and give you its best. You'll become a restless wanderer." Cain fell down and cried out, "Oh God, Your punishment is too severe. You're taking away my land and your presence. I'll be aimless and separated from everyone else. Eventually they'll hunt me down and kill me." So God put a mark on Cain and said, "Anyone who kills Cain will suffer for it 7 times over." With that, Cain went away from the presence of the Lord. After people disobeyed God and went into sin, they became extremely wicked. All of their thoughts and actions were evil. God knew he had to destroy the people he created. Yet, a man named Noah walked with God. The Lord said to him, "I'm going to destroy the entire earth with a flood because the people are wicked. Therefore, I'm making an agreement with you to preserve life on the earth. Build an ark. I'll give you the exact dimensions I want you to use. After you're done, a flood will kill all the people and animals on the earth. You and your family will be saved, as well as the animals you take with you." God gave him building instructions, and Noah did exactly as God said. He and his 3 sons built the ark. When it was done, God said, "Noah, go into the ark with your family. After 7 days, water will fall upon the earth, and every person and animal will be destroyed, except those in this ark." So Noah and his wife, his sons, and their wives moved into the ark. Once they were there, animals and birds started coming in pairs, male and female. There were 7 pairs of clean animals, 7 pairs of birds, and only 1 pair of all the rest. When they had every kind of animal and bird, God closed the door. On the 7th day, the waters that were above the sky started falling to the earth. At the same time, the earth erupted, sending fountains of water shooting up from beneath the ground. Waters flowed down the hills and filled the valleys. Eventually it covered the entire earth. All the people and animals were destroyed. Those same waters lifted Noah's ark above the destruction. The people, animals, and birds that were in the ark were safe while the whole earth was being destroyed. This deluge of water lasted 40 days and covered the entire world. And then it stopped. Noah's ark floated on the water for 110 days. After it stopped raining, there were winds that moved across the earth to dry it off. Finally, the ark landed on a mountain called Ararat. Noah waited for another for months and then opened the window to see what was on the earth. He sent out a raven, but it never came back. Next he sent out a dove, which flew around, but couldn't find a place to nest. Soon she returned to the ark, and Noah took her in. After 7 days, he sent out the dove again. She came back that night with an olive leaf in her beak. Noah then knew that plants were growing once again. He waited 7 more days and sent out the dove again. This time, she didn't come back. A month later, Noah removed the hatch from the ark and saw that the earth was dry. God said, "Your family and the animals may leave the ark." Once they were out of the ark, Noah built an altar so they could worship God. The Lord smelled the sacrifice and said, "Never again will I destroy the earth with a flood. There will always be planting and harvest, hot and cold, summer and winter, day and night. From now on, animals will fear you, yet you are still responsible for them. You may now eat animals as well as plants, but you're not to kill people because they are made in the image of God. You're to multiply and once again fill the earth with people." God said to Noah and his family, "Look into the clouds and see the rainbow. When I look at it, and when you look at it, we'll remember this promise. A flood will never again destroy the entire earth. This is my promise to you." After the flood, Noah planted a vineyard. In time, he drank some of the wine from his harvest and got drunk. He went to his tent and fell asleep on the floor without any clothes on. His youngest son saw his father lying there and went and told his brothers what he had seen. His brothers draped a coat between them and walked backwards into the tent, draping the coat over their father. When Noah woke up, he learned what had happened, so he put a curse on the family of his youngest son and blessed the families of the other 2. All 3 sons had large families with many children and grandchildren. Among all these people was a man named Nimrod. He became the first dictator. He was known for his skill of hunting, and his kingdom was called Babylon. The people of Babylon realized that their potential was greater if they stayed together. They felt it best not to go throughout the world like God had said. So they built a tower that went high into the sky, high enough so Everyone could see it. They felt this would keep them together. God looked at the tower and said, "People are disobeying my command. If they stay together, nothing will be impossible for them. Therefore, I'll have them talk different languages." Suddenly the people spoke many different languages. They were confused because they couldn't understand one another. They didn't know what was happening to them. Immediately, the work on the tower stopped. They formed groups according to their languages and moved to other parts of the world. The tower became known as the Tower of Confusion or the Tower of Babel. The oldest son of Noah was Shem. One of his descendants was a man named Peleg. His name means division, because at the time of his birth, the earth divided. His great-great-great-grandson was Abraham. Terah lived in a place called Ur. He had 3 sons and at least 1 daughter. One of the sons had a child named Lot. Another son was Abram, who married his half-sister Sarai. When Lot's father died, Terah took the entire family and moved north to a place called Haran. They stayed there until Terah died. When Abram was 75 years old, the Lord said, "Abram, I want you to leave your family and country and go to a place I have selected for you. I'll make you into a nation and your name will be great. I'll bless you, and I'll also bless everyone else who blesses you, and I'll curse anyone who curses you. All the families of the earth will be blessed because of you." So Abram took his wife Sarai and Lot his nephew and left Haran. When they came to a place called Canaan, God said, "I'm giving this land to you and your children." Abram believed God, even though he didn't have any children. He knew God would keep his promise, so he built an altar in the new land God had given him and worshiped the Lord. Sometime later, a severe famine hit the land. So Abram took all he had and went to Egypt. He said to Sarai, "The Egyptians will see you're a beautiful woman. They'll kill me in order to get you, so tell them you're my sister." He was right. The Egyptians saw that Sarai was beautiful. When Pharaoh found out that she wasn't married, he took her into his house. He treated Abram well, thinking the man was her brother. Abram became rich in Egypt. His wealth included sheep, cattle, donkeys, camels, and servants. God was angry with Pharaoh because he had Sarai in his house. Plagues hit his family, and everyone got seriously sick. Finally, Pharaoh said to Abram, "Why did you do this to me? You said she was your sister. Now I find out she's your wife. Take her and get out of here." So Abram took his wife and Lot and went back to Canaan. They settled near a place called Bethel. There, he worshipped the Lord. Both Abram and Lot were prosperous. Soon, their herdsmen started arguing over grazing rights. Abram said, "We shouldn't be fighting. After all, we're family. There is plenty of land. Here, you choose. You go one way, and I'll go the other." Lot knew which direction he wanted to go. The Jordan Valley had plenty of water, and it reminded him of Egypt. He'd often say to himself, "It's like the Lord's garden." So he chose the entire Jordan Valley. He set up his tent near Sodom, even though the men there were extremely wicked. Then the Lord said to Abram, "Look to the north and to the south. Look to the east and the west. I'm giving it all to you and your descendants. Get up, walk over all this land. It's yours." Sometime later, an alliance of 4 city kingdoms made war with the 5 cities around Sodom. The alliance won the battle and took all their possessions, food, and many of the people, including Lot. When Abram heard about this, he took his 318 trained servants and chased after the alliance. He attacked them during the night and totally defeated them. He then took Lot, all the people, and their possessions back to Sodom. Abram met Melchizedek when he got there. Melchizedek was the king of Salem, but he was also a priest of the Most High God. He said, "Abram is blessed by the Most High God, who created the heaven and earth. Give praise to the Most High God, because it is He who has given you victory over your enemies." Abram gave Melchizedek 1/10 of everything. The king of Sodom said to Abram, "Give me the people and you keep all the possessions." Abram said, "No, I'm not taking any of it. I'm giving it all back to you, except what the servants ate during the campaign. I never want you to say, I made Abram rich." With that, Abram and his servants went home. Soon afterwards, the Lord came to him in a vision and said, "I'm your shield and exceeding great reward." Abram answered, "Lord, I still don't have a son, but I have a servant that is like a son to me. Let him inherit your promises to me." "No, you'll have a son, and he'll be your heir." "Abram, look at the stars in the sky. Your descendants will be as hard to count as those stars." This seemed impossible to Abram, but he believed it, and God was pleased. After Abram had lived in Canaan for 10 years, Sarai became concerned that she hadn't yet had a child like the Lord promised. She said to her husband, "I have a solution to this problem. Go to bed with my slave Hagar. When she delivers a child, it'll be the same as if I had the child." Abram agreed and did as she said. But as soon as Hagar became pregnant, she started acting like she was better than Sarai. This made Sarai angry. She said to Abram, "You're the one who has caused all my problems. You got my slave pregnant, and now she thinks she's better than me." Abram said, "She's your slave. Do whatever you want with her." So Sarai started beating Hagar and humiliating her in any way she could. Finally, the slave ran away. She came to a spring of water and collapsed next to it. The angel of the Lord said to her, "Hagar, where are you going?" "Oh Lord, I'm running away from Sarai, my mistress." No, you shouldn't do that. God has heard. You're crying out in pain. Go back and submit to Sarai. Even if she beats you, you'll have a son, and you're to call him Ishmael. He'll be a fighting man and be at odds with everyone. I'll multiply your descendants so much that you wouldn't be able to count them." Hagar was amazed and said, "I have seen the God who sees me." So she named the spring, "The Well of the Living God who sees me." She then went back and submitted herself to Sarai. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar gave birth to her son. He named the child Ishmael, which means God hears. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord said to him, "You'll be the father of many nations, and some of your descendants will be kings. Therefore I'm changing your name to Abraham, which means the father of many nations. I will be with you, and I will give this land to you and your descendants. As a sign of these promises, you are to circumcise all the men." Then the Lord said to him, "From now on, your wife will be called Sarah. I will bless her, and she bear you a son." Abraham laughed and said, "How is it possible for a man who is 100 years old and a woman who is 90 years old to have a child? Perhaps Ishmael could inherit all your promises to me." God said, "No, Sarah will have a son and you'll call his name Isaac. I'll give my promises to him and his descendants, and I'll be their God, and the whole earth will be blessed because of them. But I will bless Ishmael as well. I will also make a great nation of him. 12 tribes will come from him." Sometime later, Abraham was sitting at the door of his tent. Suddenly he noticed 3 men standing nearby and realized that one of them was the Lord. He rushed over to them and said, "Sirs, please come sit under this tree. I'll give you some water so you can wash your feet. Then you rest while I prepare a meal. After you have eaten, you may continue on your way." They said, "Yes, we'll stay for a while." Abraham rushed into the tent and told Sarah to make some bread for his guests. He then went to the field and selected a choice calf and gave it to his servants so they could use it to prepare a meal. As soon as the food was ready, Abraham served it to his guests and then stood back and watched them eat. As they ate, the Lord said to Abraham, "Where's Sarah, your wife?" "She's in the tent." The Lord said, "I'll come back in about a year. At that time Sarah will have given birth to a son." Sarah was listening to this from inside the tent. She was 90 years old, so she laughed inside herself when she heard that she was going to give birth to a son. She said, "That's impossible. I'm too old to give birth to a child." The Lord asked Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh? Is anything too hard for the Lord? I will come back, and she will have given birth to a child." When Sarah heard this, she ran out and said, "Lord, I didn't laugh." "Ah, but you did laugh." Soon Sarah found that she was expecting a child. When Isaac was a young man, God came to Abraham and said, "Abraham, take Isaac, the son you love so dearly, and go to a place I'll show you. There, you're to sacrifice him as a burnt offering." So the next morning, Abraham got up early and cut wood for the sacrifice. He saddled a donkey, took to servants, and started on the journey. 3 days later, Abraham saw the place God had selected. He said to his servants, "Stay here with the donkey. Isaac and I will go and worship the Lord. We'll come back after the sacrifice." He told Isaac to carry the wood. Abraham took the hot coals and the knife. Isaac looked around and asked, "Father, we have the wood and the fire, but where's the lamb for sacrifice?" Abraham looked at his son and finally said, "God will provide himself a lamb for the sacrifice." When they got to the place God had selected, Abraham built an altar and arranged the wood on top. Next, he tied up his son and put him on top of the wood. He then reached for the knife to kill his son. With that, the angel of the Lord called to him out of heaven, "Abraham, Abraham, don't kill your son. Don't do anything to him. For now I know you fear God, since you were willing to give me your son." Abraham looked off to the side and saw a ram with his horns caught in a bush. He took the ram and used him as the sacrifice instead of his son. Abraham named the place "The Lord will provide." Afterwards, God said to Abraham, "Because you have obeyed me, I'll bless you and your descendants. I'll make your descendants as hard to count as the stars. They'll be as hard to count as the sand on the seashore. On top of that, I'll make them prominent, even in the cities of their enemies, and the whole earth will be blessed because of them." Then Abraham and Isaac went back to where the servants were waiting, and together they went home. King Abimelech came to Abraham and said, "We can clearly see that God is with you in everything you do. So let's make an agreement that there will be peace between your people and my people." Abraham said, "I agree, but there is a problem we need to talk about. Your people have taken one of my wells." The king said, "I didn't know anything about this. Why didn't you tell me before now? I'll take care of it." So they made an agreement, and Abraham sealed it with giving Abimelech cattle and sheep. But he set aside 7 ewe lambs. Abimelech asked about this. Abraham said, "You are to accept these 7 lambs as your way of saying that I own this well." The king accepted the 7 ewe lambs, and Abraham called the place Beersheba, which means well of the oath. He planted a tamarisk tree there and worshipped the Lord, the everlasting God. Soon after the destruction of Sodom, Lot and his 2 daughters left the little town where they lived because he was afraid of what might happen to them there. They went to the mountains and lived in a cave. One day, the oldest daughter said to her sister, "Our father is old, and we have no hope of getting a husband and having children. Therefore, it's up to us to preserve our father's line for future generations. I have a plan. Let's get our father drunk until he no longer knows what he's doing. We'll then have sex with him." The sister agreed, so that night they got their father drunk. The oldest daughter had sex with him. He didn't know anything that happened. The next day, the older daughter said to her sister, "Tonight it's your turn. Remember, we're doing this to preserve our father's line." So they got their father drunk, and the younger daughter had sex with him. Again, Lot didn't know anything that happened. Both daughters became pregnant by their father. The oldest sister gave birth to a son who became the father of the Moabites. The younger sister gave birth to a son who became the father of the Ammonites. Years later, Sarah died, having lived 127 years. Their encampment was near Hebron at the time. So Abraham went to the Hittites and said, "We both live in this land together. Please allow me to buy a place where I can bury my dead." They said, "You're God's chosen. None of us would hinder you from burying your dead." Abraham got up and bowed down before them. "One of you owns a particular cave at the end of a field. Talk to him and persuade him to sell it to me at full price." That man stepped forward and said, "I am that man, and I can tell you that you're free to bury your dead there at no charge." So the 2 men met in front of all the people, and Abraham said, "Please allow me to buy this cave at full price." The man said, "The cave is worth 400 shekels of silver." But what is that between you and me? Bury your dead freely in the cave." So Abraham weighed out 400 shekels and paid it to the man in front of everyone. So Abraham buried Sarah in the cave of Hebron, and it became his procession from that day on. When Sarah died, Abraham realized he needed to find a wife for his son Isaac. He said to his servant, "I'm sending you back to my homeland so you can find a wife for my son. Promise me you won't choose a woman from the people around here. Make sure she's from among my relatives." The servant was concerned. "What if I find a woman and she's not willing to leave her home and come here? Perhaps I should take Isaac back there to marry her." "Absolutely not. You're not to take Isaac back to that country. Listen, the Lord will send his angel before you. He'll prepare the way. But if the woman isn't willing to come back with you, then you're released from this assignment." After a long journey, the servant reached the town where Abraham's relatives lived. He stopped at a well on the outskirts of town and prayed, "Oh God, help me find the right woman for Isaac." Suddenly he had an idea. "Lord, I'll ask a woman for a drink of water. I'll know she's the right one if she gives me a drink," and then offers to draw water for all 10 of these camels. Soon a young woman named Rebekah came to the well. She was beautiful and virtuous, and she wasn't married. She filled her jar and started to walk away. The servant stepped forward and asked for a drink of water. She gave him one, and then offered to draw water for all his camels. While she was doing this, the servant asked God to help him know for sure that this was the woman for Isaac. After Rebekah was done, the servant gave her several pieces of jewelry and asked, "Who's your family? And is there room at your father's house for my men and me to spend the night?" She told the servant the names of her father and grandfather, and the servant knew they were Abraham's relatives. Rebekah said that there was plenty of room for them to spend the night. She then left the servant and ran home to tell her family about this conversation. Her brother was Laban, and when he saw the valuable jewelry, he hurried to the well to see who had given her these things. He asked the servant, "Come, we've prepared a place for you and your servants, as well as your camels." Once they got to the house, the servant was invited to sit down and eat a meal with them. But he said, "Before we eat this meal, I must tell you my story." He told them about the assignment Abraham had given him. He then said, "I prayed and asked God to show me the right woman for Isaac as a sign. I asked that she'd be willing to give me a drink of water and also draw water for all the camels. Rebekah did exactly that. I believe she's the woman God has chosen to be Isaac's wife." Laban and his father were amazed when they heard this story. They agreed with him and immediately gave their blessing. The next morning they asked Rebekah if she was willing to go with Abraham's servant and marry Isaac. She said she was willing to go. So they blessed Rebekah and sent her with the servant. Isaac was in the field when he saw, off in the distance, the servant's caravan of camels. So he started walking toward it. Rebekah saw him coming their way. She asked the servant, "Who is that man?" "Oh, that is my master, Isaac." So Rebekah covered herself with a veil. The servant told Isaac all about his trip and how God led him to just the right woman. So Isaac took Rebekah to be his wife, and the love between them was great. After Sarah died, Abraham married a woman named Keturah. Together they had 6 sons. Years later, when Abraham knew he was going to die, he gave gifts to Keturah and her sons, and sent them away to the land of the east. He then gave everything he owned to Isaac. Abraham died when he was 175 years old. Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the same cave where Sarah was buried. After 20 years of marriage, Isaac prayed for his wife because she was unable to have children. God answered his prayer, and Rebekah became pregnant with twin boys. Near the end of her term, she felt like there was fighting inside her womb. She was in so much pain that she prayed, "Oh God, what is happening to me?" The Lord said, "You have 2 nations inside of you. 2 people groups will come from your womb. One will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." At the time of birth, the oldest baby was red and covered with hair. They named him Esau, which means hairy. His brother was born holding on to Esau's heel. They named him Jacob, which means heel. Isaac was 60 years old when the boys were born. As a man, Esau became skilled as an outdoorsman, which included hunting. Jacob was quiet and preferred to stay home. Rebekah loved Jacob, but Isaac loved the taste of wild game, so he favored Esau. One day, Esau came home exhausted from a trip. He found Jacob cooking a pot of stew. He said, "I'm tired and hungry. Give me some of that red stew." Jacob said, "I'll trade my stew for your birthright." "That's a deal. My birthright won't do me any good if I die of hunger. Now give me the stew. I want the whole pot." Jacob said, "No, you must first swear an oath that you're giving me your birthright." "I swear to you, the birthright is yours." With that, Jacob gave his brother an entire meal of bread, stew, and drink. Esau ate and drank heartily, and then got up and left. From then on, it was said of Esau, he despised his birthright. Also, people referred to him as Edom, which means red. This was because of the value he placed on that red stew. A great famine hit the place where Isaac lived, so he realized he needed to move to another area. The Lord appeared to him and said, "Don't go to Egypt, stay in this land. Even though you're a foreigner here, I'll bless you and give you all the promises I gave to your father Abraham. Your descendants will be as hard to count as the stars. I'll give them all of this land, and through them all the nations on earth will be blessed." So Isaac didn't go to Egypt, but instead settled in the land of Abimelech, king of the Philistines. When the men there saw that Rebekah was a beautiful woman, they asked Isaac about her. He immediately became concerned for his life, thinking they would kill him because of her. So he said, "She's my sister." When Isaac had been there for a while, the king looked out of his window and saw Isaac hugging and kissing Rebekah. The king sent for him and said, "This woman is your wife. Why did you tell everyone she was your sister?" Isaac explained how he was afraid he might be killed because of her. The king said, "You put all of us at risk. One of our men could have easily had sex with her. Then we all would have suffered because of it." So Abimelech sent out a warning to all his people, "If anyone harms Isaac or his wife, that person will die." Isaac was a farmer while he lived among the Philistines. The Lord blessed his harvest so much that he became more and more wealthy. Eventually, his wealth was so great that the Philistines became jealous. They decided to plug up some wells Abraham had dug. In time, Abimelech asked Isaac to leave their country. He said, "You become too powerful, we feel. You're a threat to us." Isaac moved to another valley, and his servants unplugged some of Abraham's wells. They also dug some new ones. Suddenly they found precious spring water. The herdsmen in that area said, "That water belongs to us." So Isaac's servants went and dug other wells and again found water. Again, the herdsmen said, "That's our water." They went to another area and dug some more wells. This time, no one argued about the water they found. Isaac said, "Finally, the Lord has made room for us. We can now prosper at this spot." He called that place Plenty of Room. Abimelech and a delegation from the Philistines went to Isaac. When he saw them, he saw it. "You sent me away in anger, so why have you come to me now?" Abimelech said, "It's clear to us that the Lord has been with you all this time. We want a treaty with you. We were good to you when you lived among us. Yes, we sent you away, but it was in peace. Now, let's agree that you'll treat us the same way and won't harm us." So Isaac prepared a banquet, and they all ate and drank together. The next morning they each gave an oath that they would live in peace with one another. As Abimelech and his delegation left, servants came and told Isaac about their newest well. They said, "We found water." So he called the place Beersheba, which means well of the oath. As Isaac got older, he became blind and thought he was going to die soon. So he decided to give the family blessing to Esau. He said, "Go hunt for wild game and prepare it the way I like. After I eat, I'll give you the family blessing." Rebekah overheard this and told Jacob. She saw it. "Go get 2 young goats. I'll prepare them as a meal for your father and make it the way that will please him. You serve it to him and get the blessing." Jacob said, "Esau is a hairy man, and I have smooth skin. If my father touches me, he'll know that I'm trying to trick him. He'll give me a curse instead of a blessing." Rebekah said, "Let your curse be on me. Go and do as I've said." So Jacob went and got the 2 young goats and gave them to his mother. She gave him Esau's hunting clothes to put on. After she prepared the meal, she covered Jacob's arms with goat skins, as well as the back of his neck. Jacob took the food to his father's tent. He said, "Father." Isaac turned his blind eyes toward him. "Yes, son, who are you?" "I'm Esau. Please, sit up and eat so you can give me the blessing." Isaac said, "I'm surprised you're back so fast. Your God was with me and gave me success." Isaac said, "Come close to me so I can make sure you're really Esau." So Jacob stepped closer, and Isaac reached out and touched his arm. It was hairy like Esau's arm. Isaac then reached around to the back of Jacob's neck. Once again, he found it was hairy. He said, "Son, I'm confused. Your voice sounds like Jacob, yet your skin feels like Esau. Are you really Esau?" "Yes, father, I'm Esau." "Well, please, serve me the meal." Jacob served the food to his father. It tasted exactly the way Esau would have prepared it. Still, Isaac was not convinced. So he asked his son to come and give him a kiss. When Jacob leaned over to kiss his father, Isaac smelled the clothes his son was wearing. "It had the smell of the outdoors," he said. "The smell of my son is like the smell of a field, blessed by God. May God give you of heaven's dew, and earth's richness, an abundance of grain and new wine. May nations serve you, and people bow down to you. You'll be the master over your brothers, the sons of your mother will bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed." Soon after Jacob left the tent, Esau came in with the meat he had prepared. "Father, sit up and eat the meal I prepared for you. Then you can give me the blessing." Isaac looked up. "Who are you?" "I'm Esau, your firstborn son. Please, sit up." Isaac began to tremble. "Then who brought me a meal of wild game?" I gave him the blessing. And indeed, the blessing is his. Esau was shocked. He shouted, "Bless me, too, my father." "Ah, your brother deceived me and took your blessing. I've made him your lord. All of his relatives will serve him. I've given him everything, all of our grain and new wine. What else can I possibly give you?" As Esau left his father's tent, he said, "After my father dies, I'll kill Jacob." Rebekah heard this and rushed to tell Jacob, "You must leave. Go to my brother's house. I'll send for you once Esau gets over his anger. Go quickly. I don't want to lose both of you in one day." She then got Isaac's permission for Jacob's trip. Isaac agreed that Jacob should go to Rebekah's country and find a wife. Jacob started his journey to his mother's country. His father had said, "You're not to marry a Canaanite woman. Go back to your mother's family and find a wife there. May God give you the blessings he promised Abraham." Jacob traveled all day. That night, he slept on the ground, using a rock for a pillow. During the night he dreamed he saw a ladder that went up to heaven. There were angels going up and coming down. He saw the Lord standing above the ladder saying, "I'm the Lord God of Abraham and your father Isaac. I'm giving this land to you and your descendants. All the earth will be blessed because of them. I'm with you and will watch over you as you go. I'll bring you back to this land." Suddenly Jacob woke up and was afraid. He said, "Oh, God is here, and I didn't know it. This is the house of God and the doorway to heaven." He took the rock he had used as a pillow and used it to build an altar. He poured oil on it and called the place Bethel, which means the house of God. He said, "If God watches over me and provides for me and brings me back to this land, then he'll be my God, and I'll give him a tenth of all he gives to me." Jacob traveled on to the home of his mother's brother. His uncle Laban received him with joy. Now Laban had 2 daughters. The oldest was Leah, and the youngest was Rachel, who was beautiful. At the end of a month, Laban said to Jacob, "Work for me, and I'll give you wages. What's your price?" Jacob said, "I'll work for you 7 years for your younger daughter Rachel." Laban agreed and said, "It's a deal." So Jacob worked for Laban 7 years, and it seemed like a few days because of his great love for Rachel. At the end of that time, Laban invited people to a wedding feast. At the appropriate time, he brought his daughter and gave her to Jacob. It wasn't until morning that Jacob realized his uncle had given him Leah, the oldest daughter. He was furious. He went to Laban and said, "Why did you deceive me? You know I love Rachel. I served you 7 years for her." Laban said, "In our country, a younger daughter isn't allowed to marry until the older one is married. But this is what we can do. Fulfill Leah's bridal week, and then I'll give you Rachel and she can also be your wife. It'll only cost you another 7 years of work." So Jacob agreed, and after 7 days, he married Rachel as well. Jacob worked for his uncle Laban a total of 14 years to get his 2 wives. It was obvious that he loved Rachel more than Leah. The Lord saw that Leah was unloved, so he kept Rachel from having children. After Leah had 4 sons, Rachel was so jealous that she yelled at Jacob, "Give me a son or I'll die." He said, "I'm not God. I didn't make you barren." With this, Rachel gave him her maidservant. She said, "Sleep with my servant. She can have children for me." Jacob agreed, and soon the servant started having children. Suddenly Leah was unable to bear children, so she gave her maidservant to Jacob. Soon, with 3 women, Jacob had 10 sons and 1 daughter. At that point, God allowed Rachel to give birth to a son. She called him Joseph. He was the 11th son. At this point, Jacob went to Laban and said, "I want to return to my home. Give me the freedom to take my wives and children and go." Laban said, "Oh Jacob, be kind to me and don't leave. I've learned that the Lord has blessed me because of you. I'll pay you whatever you want." Jacob said, "You don't have to pay me anything. Instead, allow me to build up my wealth by keeping a part of the flock. I'll oversee your flocks, but I'll keep all the goats and sheep that are born speckled, spotted, or streaked. You keep the rest. In this way, you'll know if I'm stealing from you. Simply check my flocks and see if they all have the right markings on them." Laban agreed to these terms, so they separated the flocks according to those markings. Jacob had a way of making the lambs be born speckled, spotted, and streaked. Using this process, he made sure all the strongest of the flock were his, and all the weakest of the flock were Laban's. In frustration, Laban changed their agreement 10 times in order to gain the advantage. Even so, Jacob became very rich over the years. One day, he overheard a conversation between his brothers-in-law. They said, "Jacob has built his wealth by taking what really belongs to our father." He also noticed that Laban's attitude had changed towards him. The Lord said to Jacob, "Go back to the land I gave to your fathers, and I'll be with you." Jacob wanted to have a private conversation with his 2 wives, so they met out in the field. He said to them, "I worked hard for your father. Even though he changed our deal 10 times, the Lord protected me, and every time Laban changed our agreement, God changed how the lambs were born. Now your father is angry with me. So the angel of God has told me to return to the land of my fathers." Both women agreed with him. They said, "Do what God has told you to do. Our father sold us to you and then spent the money. You haven't gotten anything from him that doesn't already belong to us and our children." So without telling Laban, Jacob took all that he had and started driving his herds toward Canaan. Before they left, Rachel stole her father's family idol. 3 days later, Laban heard that Jacob had left. He immediately took a group of men and chased after Jacob. It took 7 days to catch up with him. The night before, God appeared to Laban and said, "Watch out, don't do anything to Jacob, good or bad." The next day, Laban met Jacob and said, "Why did you do this to me? You left like a thief in the night and took my daughters and grandchildren like they were prisoners. If you had told me, I would have put on a grand party and sent you off with a flare. Now you've disgraced me, and if I wanted to, I could destroy you right here. But last night, the God of your fathers told me not to do anything to you. I suppose I can understand your being homesick and wanting to go home. But why did you steal my family idol?" Jacob said, "I didn't steal your idol. Look for yourself. Go ahead. Search our tents. If you find it, I'll kill the person who took it." He didn't know that Rachel had taken it. Laban searched the tents belonging to Jacob, Leah, and the 2 maidservants. He then went into Rachel's tent. She was sitting on her camel seat, where she had put the idol. She said, "Father, please forgive me for not standing. I am having my monthly period." Laban looked throughout her tent and didn't find his idol. At this point, Jacob became angry. He said, "You've chased me here like I was a criminal. You've searched everything I have you? Found anything that belongs to you? Bring it out and put it in front of your men." "No, you haven't found anything. I worked for you for 20 years. I endured the extreme heat in the day and the frost at night. I worked without much sleep so you could prosper. I endured these hardships and you still mistreated me through it all. Then you made me bear all the loss for anything that went wrong. I had to pay you if someone stole a sheep, if an animal killed a lamb. Suddenly it was my lamb. You changed our agreement 10 times. I would be standing here penniless if God hadn't made things right. Now he's protecting me from you." Laban said, "Everything you have belongs to me. Those are my daughters. Those are my grandsons. Those are my flocks. But what can I do now? Let's make a firm agreement that can't be changed. Everyone here will be a witness to it." So all the men took stones and piled them in a mound. Jacob and Laban agreed that neither man would ever go to the other side of the mound. Laban said, "These rocks are an agreement between us. You're not to mistreat my daughters and take any other wives." Jacob then made a sacrifice to God, and afterwards everyone sat down to a meal. The next morning, Laban kissed his daughters and grandchildren and blessed them. He then returned to his home. Jacob and his family were going back to his homeland. Suddenly God's angels met him. With that, he knew he was not alone, so he called the place to camps. From there he sent messengers to his brother Esau saying, "I'm coming home with all my possessions, and I'm hoping you'll accept me." The messengers came back and said, "Your brother is coming with 400 men." This struck fear in Jacob's heart. He immediately divided everything into 2 camps, saying, "If Esau attacks one camp, the other can escape." He prayed, "O God of Abraham and Isaac, you told me to come back to my country. You said I'd prosper here. I'm not worthy of the kindness you've shown me. I left this land with only my walking stick. Now I'm to camps. Please rescue me from my brother. You said my descendants would be as hard to count as the sand on the seashore." He then prepared gifts for his brother, which included goats, sheep, camels, cows, and donkeys. He divided them into 3 groups and sent them ahead. He told his servants, "When Esau comes to the first group, say to him, 'Your slave Jacob is sending these to you. Look, you can see him back there.'" He told the second and third the same things. He was hoping these things would help Esau be more forgiving. He then spent the night waiting for his brother's arrival in the morning. Since he couldn't sleep, he went off to be by himself. Suddenly a man appeared and grabbed him. Jacob fought back, and the 2 of them wrestled all night. At daybreak the stranger saw that Jacob was determined not to lose this fight. So the man struck. Jacob sighed and dislocated his hip socket. He said, "I've got to go. It's daybreak." Jacob said, "I won't let you go until you bless me." The man said, "What's your name?" "I'm Jacob." The man said, "No, that's no longer your name. You'll be called Israel, which means wrestled with God. You fought with God and have lived to tell about it." Jacob said, "What's your name?" The man said, "I'm not telling you my name." With that, he blessed Jacob. Jacob called the place God's face. He said, "I've seen God's face, and I'm still alive." Jacob limped back to his camp. Off in the distance he could see Esau and his 400 men coming. He put each of his families into different groups, and then he went out front. He bowed 7 times as he hobbled toward his brother. Esau ran up to him and gave him a hug. Both men cried. Esau then pointed to the people standing behind Jacob. "Who are these people with you?" After Esau met Jacob's family, he said, "Why did you put all those animals along the way?" "Oh, I gave those to you in hopes of winning your forgiveness." Esau said, No, I have enough. You keep them." But Jacob insisted, "Please, accept my gifts. It would make me very happy." So Esau agreed. Then Esau and his men went home that same day. Jacob went to an area near a city called Shechem. There he built an altar and called it God, the God of Israel. Jacob had 11 sons, but only one daughter. Her name was Dinah. One day, she went out to be with some of the young women of that area. While she was there, a prince named Shechem saw her and raped her. After he was done, he felt affection for her and spoke tenderly to her. He said to his father, "I love this girl, and I want you to talk with her father so she can be my wife." Jacob heard about his daughter's rape while his sons were away watching the cattle. Before they returned, Shechem's father came and talked to Jacob about the possibilities of a wedding. Dinah's brothers were furious when they heard about all of this. They felt this was an outrage to the entire family of Israel. The young man's father said, "Please think about the good that can come from this. My son loves your daughter. Let them get married. We'll then give you our daughters to marry, and we'll become one people." Shechem said, "I'll do whatever you ask if you'll allow me to marry Dinah." Jacob's sons thought of a plan to get revenge. They said, "We can't give you our women because your men aren't circumcised. That would be a disgrace to us. The only way we could agree to your terms is if every man in your city was circumcised. If you agree to this, we'll give you Dinah and take your daughters as our wives. But if you refuse to do this, we will take Dinah and leave." Shechem and his father were happy with these terms. They went back to the city and met with all the men. They explained the agreement and then said, "This is a great deal for us. They have a lot of possessions. In time, it'll all be ours. All we have to do is be circumcised." All the men agreed and were immediately circumcised. 3 days later, they were still in great pain. 2 of Dinah's brothers, Simeon and Levi, went into the city and totally caught the men by surprise. Systemically, they killed them, all with swords. They also killed Shechem and his father and took Dinah from their house. Afterwards, the other brothers went and plundered the city. They looted every house and all the fields. They took the women and children, their possessions, and all the livestock. Jacob was shocked when he found out about this. He said to Simeon and Levi, "You've caused this whole land to turn against us. Once news of this gets out, all the surrounding towns will come at us with a mighty force and totally destroy us." They said, "What choice did we have? They can't treat our sister like a prostitute." God said to Jacob, "Hurry, go to Bethel, build an altar at the spot I appeared to you when you were running from Esau." Jacob then gave instructions to his family and all the people with him. He said, "Purify your hearts and get rid of all your idols. We're going to Bethel, and I'm going to build an altar to God. He has always helped me wherever I've gone." So the people gave him all their false gods and earrings. Jacob hid them under an oak near the town of Shechem. They then went to Bethel, where Jacob built an altar. God sent a terror over the cities around them, so they were afraid to attack Jacob and his sons. God met with him and gave him all the promises of Abraham. Afterwards they left Bethel and moved south. Along the way, Rachel died giving birth to her son Benjamin. She was buried near Bethlehem. Jacob had 12 sons, but his favorite was Joseph. To show his love, Jacob gave Joseph a special coat made with many colors. This made the other sons jealous. Joseph made things worse by telling his brothers about his unusual dreams. In one dream, we were binding bundles of grain. My bundle suddenly stood upright, and your bundles bowed down to it. This made his brothers angry. They couldn't imagine Joseph ruling over them. In another dream, the sun, moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me. Even his father questioned him on this. "Will your mother and I, as well as your brothers, bow down to you still?" Jacob kept it in mind. Some time later, the 10 older brothers took the flocks to graze in a distant field. Jacob decided to send Joseph to see how they were doing. When the brothers saw him coming, they said, "Here comes that dreamer. Let's kill him and throw him into a deep pit. Then we'll see what happens to his dreams." Reuben was the oldest brother and said, "Don't kill him. Just throw him into a pit." His plan was to rescue the boy later and send him back to his father. So the brothers agreed and threw Joseph into a pit. Reuben went on an errand while the others ate a meal. While they were eating, a group of merchants came by on their way to Egypt. Suddenly one of the brothers, named Judah, had an idea. "Why should we kill Joseph? After all, he's our brother. Instead, let's sell him." So they sold him to the merchants. Reuben came back later and was shocked to see that the boy was gone. The brothers told him, what they had done. Together they thought of a story to tell their father. They killed a goat and dipped Joseph's coat in the blood. When they got home, they showed the coat to their father. Jacob grabbed it and cried out, "Joseph has been killed by wild animals." He tore his clothes and started crying for his son. The others tried to comfort him, but he mourned for Joseph from the depths of his heart. He said, "I'll mourn his death for the rest of my life." Once Joseph arrived in Egypt, he was sold to a man named Potiphar. Joseph adjusted to his life as a slave, and God prospered everything he did. He grew in his abilities and gained the respect of his master. Eventually, Potiphar put Joseph in charge of the entire household, including the finances. Potiphar didn't even know what he owned except for the food that was put in front of him. One day, Potiphar's wife asked Joseph to go to bed with her. He refused, telling her that this would be a sin to his master and to God. But she was a determined woman and wouldn't take no for an answer. She pursued him every chance she got, but he always refused her. One day, she saw an opportunity when her husband wasn't home. She waited until Joseph came into the house and then grabbed him. He tried to pull away, but she held on to his coat and wouldn't let go. Finally, he left the coat in her hands and ran away. This made her furious, so she decided to get revenge. She screamed, and the household servants came running. She told them that Joseph had come into her room and tried to pull her into bed. She said he ran away when she screamed. She showed them his coat as proof of what she was saying. When her husband came home, she told him the same story. He was angry and had Joseph put in prison. Judah was the fourth son of Jacob. There came a time when he left his brothers to live on his own. He married a Canaanite woman who gave birth to 3 sons. When the time was right, Judah found a wife for his oldest son. Her name was Tamar. Unfortunately, the oldest son was evil, and the Lord put him to death. Judah told his second son to have sex with Tamar so his oldest brother would have an heir, and the family name would continue on. The second son slept with Tamar, but didn't like the idea of producing a child for his brother. So at the last moment during sex, he withdrew, so she couldn't get pregnant. This made the Lord angry, and he killed the second son. Judah then told Tamar, "Go back and live as a widow in your father's house. I'll give you my youngest son when he grows up." So she did as she was told. Years went by, and yet Judah didn't give Tamar his youngest son. He was worried that his last son would die like his brothers. Still, she could see that the youngest was now old enough to marry. About that same time, Judah's wife died. Afterwards, he and his friend traveled to a place to shear sheep. Someone told this to Tamar. She immediately changed her clothes so she wouldn't look like a widow. She then covered her face with a veil. She went and sat down next to the road where her father-in-law would travel that day. He saw her and assumed she was a prostitute. Because she wore a veil over her face, he didn't know she was his daughter-in-law. He said to her, "Let me sleep with you. What will you give me?" He said, "When I get to my flock, I'll send you a young goat." She said, "I'll have sex with you, but you must leave something with me so I can be sure you'll send me the young goat." "What do you want?" She said, "I want your walking stick and the ring you keep on the cord around your neck." He gave these things to her and then had sex with her. She became pregnant. After they were done, she went home, removed her veil, and once again put on her widow clothes. Once Judah got to his flock, he asked a friend to take the young goat back to the prostitute. He said, "Be sure to get the things I left with her." When the friend got there, he couldn't find her. He asked some men who lived in that area, "Where is the prostitute that sits by this road?" They said, "There has never been a prostitute sitting by this road." The friend went back and told all of this to Judah. He laughed, "Then let her keep those things I gave her. I tried to fulfill my part of the bargain." 3 months later, someone told Judah, "Your daughter-in-law acted like a prostitute and now she's pregnant." Judah was furious. He yelled, "Bring her here. We'll burn her." As they were getting her, she sent a message to her father-in-law. It said, I can identify the man who got me pregnant. These things belong to him. Do you recognize them?" As soon as he saw his ring and walking stick, he knew what had happened. He said, "She's a better person than me. I promised to give her my youngest son, but didn't do it." He never went to bed with her again. She gave birth to twin boys. As they were being born, one child stuck his hand out. The midwife tied a red thread around it, saying, "This is the firstborn." Suddenly, the hand went back in, and the other child was born. So they named that child Perez, which means breakout. Then his brother was born. Because of the bright red thread on his wrist, they named him Zerah, which means bright. Life in prison was hard for Joseph, but God was with him and blessed him. His jailer came to respect him and finally started to use him as an assistant. Eventually, Joseph was in charge of the entire prison. One day, Pharaoh put his chief butler and chief baker in the prison. While they were there, each man had a dream. Joseph asked to hear them. The butler said, "I saw 3 branches on a vine. They blossomed and then had grapes. I squeezed the grapes into Pharaoh's cup and served it to him." "Ah," said Joseph, "the 3 branches are 3 days. In 3 days, Pharaoh will lift your head and you'll be given back your old job. Please remember me and ask Pharaoh to set me free from this prison. I've done nothing to deserve this." After hearing this, the baker was eager to tell Joseph his dream. "I had 3 baskets of Pharaoh's bread on my head. Birds flew up and ate all the bread from out of the baskets." "Oh," said Joseph, "the 3 baskets are also 3 days. In 3 days, Pharaoh will lift your head off from you and hang you from a tree until you're dead. Birds will eat your flesh." It all happened just as Joseph said. Pharaoh restored the butler to his previous position and hung the baker from a tree. Unfortunately, the butler soon forgot about Joseph. 2 years later, Pharaoh had 2 dreams. He woke up after the first one, but went back to sleep. He then had a second dream, but this time, he was so troubled he couldn't go back to sleep. He called for his counselors and told them his 2 dreams. They couldn't figure out their meanings. Suddenly, the chief butler remembered Joseph. He told Pharaoh about the man in prison who interpreted his dream and the baker's dream. Pharaoh sent guards to bring Joseph to him. Immediately, they got him, cleaned him up, and brought him before Pharaoh. He told Joseph about his dreams. "In the first one, I saw 7 fat cows come out of the river and graze along its banks. Suddenly 7 skinny cows came up out of the river and ate the fat ones, and yet they were just as skinny as before. In my second dream, I saw 7 plump heads of grain growing on a stalk. Suddenly, 7 dried up heads of grain sprouted up on a stalk next to it. The thin heads of grain swallowed up the healthy ones. Still, they were as thin and dried up as before." Joseph said, "God is telling you what he's about to do. The 7 good cows and the 7 good heads of grain are 7 years of great abundance. After that, there will be 7 years of famine. It'll be so severe that the good years will be forgotten. Therefore, look for a wise man to put in charge of the land. Have him organize the collection of food during the good years and store it up for the bad years. If you don't do this, the country will be ruined by famine." Pharaoh said to his officials, "Are we able to find anyone better than Joseph for this job? He has the Spirit of God within him." He turned to Joseph. "The people will submit to your commands. Next to me, you'll be the most powerful man in Egypt." During the next 7 years, Joseph traveled throughout the land, collecting and storing food. Then, just as God had shown him, the 7 years of famine started. This famine also affected all the surrounding countries. When the people of Egypt started to feel the famine, Joseph opened the storehouses and sold them grain. Soon all the countries around Egypt came and bought grain from Joseph. Jacob heard there was grain in Egypt, so he sent his 10 oldest sons to go and buy food. He didn't send Benjamin because he was afraid of losing him. When they arrived in Egypt, they went before the governor of the land. They didn't know it was Joseph. He recognized them, but pretended not to know them. He wanted to test them to see if they had changed. "Where are you from?" When they answered, he glared at them. "You're spies." The brothers were shocked. "No, we're honest men, all the sons of a man who lives in Canaan. One of our brothers stayed at home, and the other one is gone." Joseph said, "Prove it to me. I'll keep one of you here. The rest of you go home and bring back your younger brother. Then I'll know if you're telling the truth." He kept Simeon and sent the others home with sacks of grain, without them knowing. He had their money put into the grain sacks. They told Jacob what happened. They said, "We need to take Benjamin back to Egypt in order to get Simeon out of prison." It was then they discovered the money in their sacks of grain. They were afraid, and Jacob said, "You're not taking Benjamin away from me. Joseph is gone, and now Simeon is gone. Benjamin is all I have left. If I lose him, I'll die with grief." In time their grain from Egypt was gone. Jacob told his sons to go back and buy more. Judah reminded him that they couldn't go back unless they took Benjamin with them. He said, "Send him with me. I'll guarantee his safety. Let us go. We need the food." Finally Jacob agreed, and the brothers returned to Egypt with Benjamin. They took double the money so they could return the money they found in their sacks. When Joseph saw them, he told his servant to take them to his house for the noon meal. The brothers tried to return the money they had found, but the servant said they were not missing any payments. The next morning, the brothers were sent back to Canaan with their sacks full of grain. Joseph had his servant put a silver cup in the sack belonging to Benjamin. When the men had gone a short way, the servants of Joseph caught up with them and said, "One of you has stolen our master's silver cup." The brothers were shocked. "We wouldn't do such a thing. If you find that any of us have it, that person will die, and the rest of us will become slaves of your master." Each of the brothers opened his sack, and they found the cup in the one belonging to Benjamin. The brothers were horrified. They returned to the city with the guards and fell down in front of Joseph. He asked, "Why have you done this?"